The Boy Who Cried Wolf, a retelling. Once upon a time, in a valley nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling river, there was a small village where life was simple and honest. The villagers rose with the sun, tended their crops, cared for their animals, and looked out for one another. Trust bound them together like threads of a tightly woven cloth. Among the villagers was a young boy, no older than 12, who had been given an important duty. He was to watch over the village's flock of sheep. The boy and his duty. The boy was full of energy, curiosity, and the restlessness of youth. Each morning he would lead the flock of sheep out of the village, up the grassy hillside, and toward the meadows where they could graze freely. His job was not difficult in theory. All he had to do was keep the sheep together, prevent them from wandering off, and most importantly, keep watch for wolves that sometimes prowled near the forest edge. The villagers took the threat of wolves very seriously. Wolves were clever, swift, and merciless when hungry. They could scatter a flock within minutes, dragging away lambs or even full-grown sheep. For families in the village, losing sheep meant losing food, wool, and livelihood. That was why, even though the boy was still young, he had been entrusted with this task. It was both a sign of trust and a lesson in responsibility. At first, the boy felt proud. He liked the idea that the village depended on him. He imagined himself as a brave guardian, like the heroes in the old stories the elders told by the fire. But pride alone could not fill the long hours of watching sheep slowly munch grass. The boredom sets in. Day after day, the boy sat on the same hill, listening to the same rustle of wind through the grass, the same bleating of sheep, the same buzzing of insects. The sun climbed, then sank. Clouds drifted lazily. Time felt like it stretched endlessly. The boy tried to amuse himself. He skipped stones down the hillside. He whistled tunes he had heard in the village. He carved little figures from sticks. Yet no matter what he did, the silence and monotony always returned. He began to long for something exciting, something that would break the dull rhythm of his days. That was when a mischievous idea crept into his mind. He remembered how the villagers always told him, "If you ever see a wolf, shout with all your might. We will come running with sticks and tools to drive it away." What if, the boy thought, I called for help when there was no wolf at all? Everyone would come running, worried and breathless, and then they would find me, laughing. Wouldn't that be amusing? The idea made him giggle. The more he imagined the villagers' faces, surprised, confused, perhaps even annoyed, the more he wanted to try it. The first false alarm. So, one quiet afternoon, when the sheep grazed peacefully and not a shadow moved in the forest, the boy leapt to his feet. He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Wolf! Wolf! A wolf is attacking the flock!" His voice echoed down the hill and into the valley. In the village below, people dropped what they were doing. Farmers abandoned their tools. Women hurried from their homes. Children followed curiously. With fear and determination, they rushed up the hill, carrying sticks, hoes, and whatever they could grab to defend the sheep. The boy watched them climb, their faces strained with effort. His heart beat faster, not with fear but with anticipation of his joke. When the first villager reached him, panting, and demanded, "Where is the wolf?" the boy burst into laughter. "There is no wolf," he cried between giggles. "I only wanted to see you run." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then the villagers frowned, muttered angrily, and shook their heads. One older man scolded, "This is no laughing matter, boy. We left our work, our homes, because we thought you were in danger. Do not play with such things." But the boy, still grinning, only half listened. To him the whole scene was amusing, and the villagers' anger was just another part of the fun. The second false alarm. A few days later, the boy grew restless again. The thrill of the prank lingered in his memory, and he longed to feel it once more. Surely, he thought, another false alarm could not hurt. So once again he jumped up and shouted, "Wolf! Wolf! A wolf is chasing the sheep!" Again the villagers, though reluctant, hurried to the hill. Their duty to protect the flock and their concern for the boy outweighed their suspicion. When they arrived, they found the sheep grazing calmly, untouched, and the boy was doubled over with laughter. "You believed me again!" he shouted gleefully. This time the villagers were furious. Some shouted at him, others refused to speak, turning back to the village with anger burning in their eyes. Trust, once shaken, is not easily restored. Yet the boy convinced himself that it was harmless fun. "No one is hurt," he thought, "and I am less bored. Why shouldn't I do it?" The villagers lose trust. Word of the boy's tricks spread through the village. People began to speak of him with disappointment. Parents warned their children, "Do not be like that boy. He makes sport of lies." Farmers grumbled that he had wasted their time and strength. The boy noticed the change. People no longer greeted him with warmth. They looked at him with suspicion, sometimes with pity. Deep down he felt a small sting of guilt. Yet whenever boredom pressed heavily on him again, he pushed the feeling aside. The real wolf comes. Then, one fateful afternoon, as the boy lounged under a tree, he noticed a movement at the edge of the forest. At first he thought it was just shadows shifting. But then he saw it clearly, the lean grey shape of a wolf slipping silently from the trees. Its eyes gleamed, fixed on the sheep. Its body crouched low, muscles rippling as it crept forward. The boy's heart froze. This time the danger was real. He sprang up, shouting with all his might, "Wolf! Wolf! Please help! A wolf is attacking the sheep!" His voice carried across the fields, but the villagers below did not stir. They heard the cries, but they remembered his lies. "Do not waste your time," one farmer muttered. "He is only playing his game again." "He will learn his lesson when no one comes," another said. The boy screamed louder, his voice cracking with fear. "Please! It's real this time! The wolf is here!" But his words were met with silence. The wolf lunged, scattering the flock. Sheep bleated in terror, running in every direction. The boy tried to chase the wolf away with stones, but it ignored him, seizing a lamb in its jaws. Another sheep fell. The boy's arms shook with helplessness. Tears stung his eyes. By the time the villagers finally climbed the hill, curious to see whether the boy had tired of his tricks, the damage was done. The wolf had vanished into the forest, and several sheep lay lifeless on the grass. The rest of the flock trembled in panic. The boy's regret. The boy stood among the frightened animals, his face pale, his eyes red with tears. "It was real," he whispered hoarsely. "I told the truth this time, but no one believed me." The villagers looked at him with sorrow, not anger. One elder spoke softly. "We wanted to believe you, child. But trust is like glass. Once broken, it cannot be made whole again so easily." The boy lowered his head. He felt the weight of his choices pressing down on him more heavily than ever before. His laughter from the past seemed cruel now. His pranks had cost the village dearly. Sheep that had been nurtured for years were gone. And more painful than the loss of the animals was the realization that he himself had shattered the trust placed in him. The lesson. From that day on, the boy no longer treated honesty as something light and optional. He understood that truth was the thread that held his community together. Lies, even small ones told in jest, could unravel that bond until nothing remained but suspicion and sorrow. Though the villagers forgave him in time, they never forgot. And the boy, who once sought only amusement, carried the memory of that day for the rest of his life. Whenever he spoke, he remembered that words carry power. Words can summon help or destroy trust. Reflection. The story of the boy who cried wolf has endured for centuries because its message is timeless. Children, eager for attention or amusement, may sometimes exaggerate or invent stories. Adults, too, may be tempted to twist the truth for gain or amusement. But once truth is compromised, trust disappears. And without trust, communities, families, and friendships begin to crumble. The boy learned, too late, that honesty is not merely about avoiding punishment. Honesty is the foundation upon which all relationships rest. When people know your word can be trusted, they will stand by you in moments of crisis. But if you squander that trust, even the most desperate cry may go unanswered.